During one of numerous tense exchanges, legendary U.S. Secretary of State John Foster Dulles asked Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, "Are you for or against America?" Nehru replied, "Yes." It is likely an apocryphal story from another time, the 1950s, and in the midst of the Cold War. But it carries a lesson for today, as the world enters Cold War 2.0 and tries to contain growing Chinese power. Again, India is a central player, and yet India remains an enigmatic partner in peace. India may side with like-minded democracies, but it also has a history of non-alignment. It will, as all countries do, pursue its own interests. While Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison calls his Indian counterpart Narendra Modi a great friend, Modi himself has told Vladimir Putin that Russia is a unique and constant friend to India. Prime Minister Scott Morrison calls Narendra Modi a great friend, but Modi himself says Russia is a unique and constant friend to India. AAP, mixed seekers. Last year marked 5 decades of friendship since the signing of the Indo-Soviet Treaty of Peace. The two countries cooperate on everything from vaccines, to space, to anti-terrorism, and trade. Russia is India's largest weapons supplier. India has been quiet about Putin's military buildup on Ukraine's border. It has called for quiet diplomacy, and last month abstained from a United Nations Security Council vote on Ukraine. India walks a fine line, balancing its ties with Moscow and Washington's efforts to enlist New Delhi in the fight against rising authoritarianism. The Quad's challenge. India's Foreign Minister Subramanyam Jaishankar is in Australia for the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue Quad, India, Japan, Australia and the US. The Quad meets at a critical time when the lines are being drawn in the big power battle between democracy and autocracy. The Quad is a regional bloc to China's increasing power and assertiveness. That front is widening after China and Russia announced a new pact last week. It represents a strong display of democratic unity and a reminder of the values these regional powers share in common. But it is also a reminder of how 20th century Cold War alliances don't meet the challenges and complexity of the 21st century. India, as well as being close to Russia, is also a member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It is the world's largest regional grouping, dwarfing the Quad. It covers 40% of the world's population and a fifth of global GDP. The Shanghai Pact nations conduct shared military exercises and cooperate against external threats. To add to the complexity, India and Japan have also explored their own trilateral grouping with Russia. Japan also maintains good diplomatic relations with Iran, a country that has grown closer to China and Russia as a response to US-led sanctions. When it comes to direct relations with China, each Quad member has its own tensions, yet none has been frozen out like Australia. Beijing still talks to the US, Japan and India. Is the Quad up to the task? That's the big question. When seriously tested, would countries put their own interests first? US Secretary of State Antony Blinken clearly has a difficult task leading a coherent international response to China. The US is fighting on multiple fronts, confronting Russia, coordinating with NATO, while still fighting the war on terror. There is often a lack of consistency and logic among Western and democratic countries. Take France. It is a genuine world power, nuclear-armed. It has the 6th largest defense budget in the world and the largest in Europe. Russian President Vladimir Putin and French President Emmanuel Macron in Moscow this week. Sputnik at Kremlin via Reuters. France is the 7th biggest economy in the world and is a permanent 5 member of the UN Security Council. France is a Pacific power with 8,000 troops in the region, more than any country apart from the US. It has up to 2 million citizens here and controls territory. Why is the Quad not a quintet? Why is France not at the table? Instead, it still feels insulted by the AUKUS submarine deal, which reneged on a contract Australia had to buy French submarines. Wounds between Paris and Canberra still have not healed. Yet the US knows how critical France is. French President Emmanuel Macron is shuttling between Moscow and Kiev, trying to broker a peaceful resolution to a looming war. How can a country be so important yet at the same time so apparently expendable or excluded? Standing up to Russia and China requires the US-led democratic alliance to be much more coordinated and much more coherent. Any hint of difference or disagreement is seen by Beijing and Moscow as weakness. A serious test. The Quad, we are told, is designed to strengthen a so-called rules-based order. What it means is a liberal, democratic, Western-dominated order. It arose after World War II. The post-war institutions were controlled by the most powerful states. It was in fact never global. It did not include the Soviet Union or China. As political scientist Michael Barnett has put it, not a liberal world order, but a world order for liberal states. This is facing a serious test. China's economic strength and growing military might, and now its burgeoning alliance with Russia, comes at a time when America can no longer impose its power. The pullout from Afghanistan and the return of the Taliban after 2 decades of war raised questions about America's resolve. The Quad is only as strong as its strongest member, America. Without a powerful and resolute US, more countries, when asked, "Are you with or against America?" may take a lead from Nehru and answer, yes. Stan Grant is the ABC's international affairs analyst and presents China Tonight on Monday at 9:35 p.m. on ABC TV, Tuesday at 8 p.m. on the ABC News Channel and on iView.